In 2008, we're going to be back on track. And here we are, 2008, and they're asking us for more money. I would say that that is a failure of the leadership in the Minneapolis public school system to properly plan and adequately provide for even their own plans, which obviously even within 2 years did not come to fruition as they expected. So to talk to the taxpayers and the property holders in Minneapolis and say, this plan is going to work, I have no confidence that they've been able to execute it in the past, therefore I have no expectation they'll be able to execute it in the future.
Sure.
And most of the teachers I've talked to have said they were out there working on the 2000 referendum. They worked hard on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know many of them that have said, I'm not doing anything for this one. Because it didn't work in the past, we know it doesn't work, and since we're doing the same thing over and over, why would we expect different results?
So we're compelled that there's a management of funds, so this could compel them to say, okay, we need to definitely make sure we spend the $60 million right this time.
No, absolutely not. First, show me that you can spend the money right. Look at this. 2001. Contract alternative schools, okay? Mm-hmm. They said they were going to spend $9 million. They spent $16 million. That is not a small number. These are not small numbers. Look at this. Social services work. Said they were going to spend $466,000. Spent $5 million. That's an order of magnitude off. That's not, oh, well, that was wrong. That's an order of magnitude.
What's that mean?
It means the decimal point got moved one digit to the left.
Okay.
It means it's 10 times wrong.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that'd be like saying there were 10 people in the room versus there being 100 people in the room. You're way off. I think that anytime we get the government to try and do some big new program, whether it be schools or trying to take healthcare or whatever it is, those programs are doomed to failure because government doesn't do it that well. They don't have the ownership stake. They, if ultimately the student doesn't perform well and he gets to the point where he's too old to be in school, then he's out and the school no longer has to deal with it. But society and the parents and the people who live in that community still have to deal with that individual. Mm-hmm. And so there isn't this like strong ownership that exists because the structure is just not set up that way, where families have that structure. Mm-hmm. So ultimately correcting it, where do we correct it? It has to be corrected at family levels. But can government come to the rescue and save all families and fix all the problems? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I think that it's more us in the communities ourselves. If we see a family that's struggling, we need to reach out and help them as one-to-one or personal charities. I've seen places where things are struggling. So what do you want to do? You want to talk to the people that are boots on the ground, and we've done that. We've talked to teachers. We said, what's the problem? What are the reasons why things are going awry? And some of the things you can look at are like Reading First. Okay, Reading First is this program where they devote these big chunks of time every day, and all you do is read. And when you ask the teachers, how well is Reading First performing? They say, well, it doesn't work well at all because you have to devote these big chunks of time, and that's not something that's conducive for students. The students don't respond well to that. They, need to have more flexibility in the classrooms to be able to respond to the student needs. But when you have programs like Reading First, which places stringent guidelines upon how things are going to work, mm-hmm. and those programs are not funded at the levels that they were promised because the lion's share of the money goes to the University of Minnesota and all these other administrative overhead pieces, so that it ends up being a far reduced amount to what was sold to the teachers, yet they're still expected to meet the criterion of it, and it has these extra reporting responsibilities. You get a program that's ineffective and wasting time. And time is the only thing we really have in schools, right? If we're going to have them meet some standard, well, by the time they have to meet that standard, we have a certain amount of hours to get that done. If 3 hours out of every day is being spent ineffectively, well, then what are our chances we're actually going to hit the standard? Unless the standard directly correlates to what we're doing in the classroom. And the teachers are saying it doesn't match. And so that'd be the first thing. Start to look at some of these programs, make sure that they're actually achieving the desired results, talking to the teachers and listening to them more. They're the ones that are in the classroom and they have good ideas. I've talked to several teachers, I know several teachers, and they give me a plethora of ideas that they would like to see enacted. And what they say is the bureaucracy does not handle suggestion or feedback well.
But this does prove just half the argument, though, right?
What, that they
mismanage money.
Right.
It still doesn't mean they don't necessarily need the money.
Well, if you're mismanaging your money, then how can you say that you need the money?
Meeting with Grant definitely helped me understand the perspective of those who opposed the referendum. Next, with Craig Westover of the Minnesota Free Market Institute, we took a step back and helped understand the landscape of Minnesota education. Hi, I'm here with Craig Westover with the Minnesota Free Market Institute. He's here to help us try to take a bird's eye view of the whole education system as a whole, and maybe help us gain a little bit better perspective on what can be done in Minnesota to help make better schools for the state and particularly here for Minneapolis. So I'm really happy to have on Craig. Thank you very much for agreeing to come on.
Well, thanks for having me on here, Brendan. I'll go anywhere to talk about education.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the Free Market Institute.
Well, the Minnesota Free Market Institute is a nonprofit. We're 501(c)(3), but basically we operate on the concept of looking at various issues in Minnesota, whether it be education, whether it be transportation, whether it be health care, and look at how free market principles can be applied. Basic premise that in all of these areas, there really is no single group of people who has all of the knowledge of all of the different transactions and all of the different interactions that go on in daily life. When people are making decisions about education for their kids, for example, which we're going to talk about today, there are just so many variables that affect individual families that it's impossible for one group, be it a government committee, be it even a private entity, to understand what's the best way to educate all kids. And our argument from a free market perspective is what policymakers ought to be doing is opening up the system, so allowing the people who do know how to educate certain groups of kids have that opportunity, rather than forcing all kids into a single system. What choices do I have for my student, and what that best suits their mentality, their education level, any special needs that they might have? What alternatives do I have? And what we would argue is that a single system, however well-intentioned, however much money it's spending, can't answer that question for every family of every student. That no one group understands what the best way to educate all kids are, but there are people out there who understand what the best way is to educate certain groups of kids. And as a policy, we ought to be freeing those people and allowing those people to take those actions, and allowing parents to go to those people who have the answers for their particular children.
What sort of barriers do you see out there right now with the district schools in the state that prevent an optimization of that idea?
Okay, well, the basic barrier, first off, is you're talking about a single monolithic system. And then on top of that system, and I agree with the educators who say we've got all these mandates that we're supposed to do, and we don't have the funding to do that, or we don't have the resources to do that. So what we've created is we've created this monolithic entity called the state school system, or the district school system. We've thrown all these mandates on top of it, again from on high, without considering the individuals of where those school districts are.
It's these mandates that make public schools so expensive, right?
Well, it makes
public, I mean.
Yeah, right. The system. Well, it not only makes it expensive, but I agree with the teachers who say that they've got so many things to worry about that they don't really have the opportunity to teach. So when you're talking about the barriers, okay, the first thing you're talking about is that you have this monolithic school system, and we're going to make this monolithic school system do everything. It's going to be able to take care of kids with disabilities. It's going to be able to take care of kids from single-family homes. It's going to be able to take care of kids with English language learners. And oh, by the way, everybody's going to excel and be great. Yeah, right. And it's going to be able to handle the kids with exceptional things. And we're going to do it all in classrooms. And you end up with a set of really an impossible criteria if you stop to think about it. That how do you handle a large classroom, and we do have classroom. How do you handle a large classroom where you've got just the whole bell-shaped curve of abilities, and then on top of that you throw an economic thing, you throw in cultural issues.
Right.
I mean, the teachers are right. They're in an unmanageable situation. Yet, what we try to do with our policy